So hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. In this lecture, we have two very important topics. First is demographic dividend of India and how we can harness the demographic dividend, and what are the benefits of having a demographic dividend for India, particularly in the present context. And after that, we need to talk about the challenges and way forward in harnessing demographic dividend. Now, demographic dividend is also a very important topic, and UPSC very often ask questions to the students about the demographic dividend. Now after that, we will also discuss about the central bank digital currency, so this is also very important. Now firstly, we need to understand the definition of the demographic dividend. So what exactly is the demographic dividend? Now demographic dividend is defined by the United Nations Population Fund. Okay, so United Nations Population Fund has defined the demographic dividend. So it is the economic growth potential that can result from the shifts in population's age structure, mainly when the share of working age population is larger than the non-working age share of the total population. Now I'll explain you this very briefly in a simple manner. So demographic dividend is simply the share of working age population is more than the share of non-working age population. Now if you look at the working age population in India, so working age population involves 15 to 59 years or 65 years of age, right? So in India, the total working age population is more than the non-working age population. So therefore we can call India is a country with a huge demographic dividend, because the median age in India is just 28.5 years. So this is the definition of demographic dividend. However, Economic Survey 2018-19 so has actually described demographic dividend will peak around 2041. So what does it mean when we say that the demographic dividend actually peak around 2041? So this actually mean that the total demographic dividend peak will be achieved by 2041, and after that the share of non-working age population will gradually increase. Okay, the share of non-working age population will gradually increase and the working age population will gradually decrease, right? So when the age of working age is 20 to 59 years of population is expected to hit 59%. So this means that the total working age population is around 59% of the total non-working age population. So I hope you understood what is demographic dividend. Now if you look at India's population pyramid, it has actually revealed that over 2/3 of India's population is of working age, with elderly comprising less than 7%. Okay, so total working age population has been at least 2/3 of India's population, and the elderly population is around 7%. So however, if you look at the aging societies or aging countries like China, Japan, so their elderly population share is much more higher, right? So and this number has been gradually increasing, and over a period of time India can also experience increasing the elderly share of non-working age population. However, at this point of time, India has been enjoying the demographic dividend and the benefits of demographic dividend, and it will get peaked by the year 2041. Right. So in this context, what is the advantage or what is the benefit of having a demographic dividend? So it can create resources which are needed to increase investments in enhancing the human capabilities. Right. So it can be called as a capital investment. Okay, so human capital. Now human capital is very important for the economic growth and economic development of any country, right? Now after that will have a positive influence on the growth and development of the society as well as the nation. Now in this context, we need to understand the importance of India's demographic dividend. So why the demographic dividend for India is very important? So there will be various opportunities which are related to the demographic dividend. Now firstly, we need to talk about the labor supply aspect. So when we have the largest number of population in the working age, so we can supply as much labor force as possible. Not just the labor force, but the labor is cheap and that attracts the foreign direct investment. So even though the aging societies like Japan have focused on attracting the human capital from countries like India, so therefore there will be an opportunity for the Indian workforce to serve in countries like Japan. Now after that, we need to talk about the capital formation aspect as well. Now when we talk about the capital formation, so please understand, when we have the largest number of working age population, when we have the human capital, so then there will be an entrepreneurial aspiration among those populations, right? So that will help in for capital formation and money multiplier effect in the economy, so that in fact fuel the economic growth, right? So the number of dependents decrease. Number of dependent means, so the people who are non-working age, so the number of dependents will decrease and individuals will start save more and more money. So this increase in the national saving rates increases the capital stock in the country and provides an opportunity to create country's capital through investment, right? So this actually means that the share of non-working population is significantly lower and the share of working age population is very high. So in this context, the money which is being earned by these working age population will get invested in the economy, right? So that could fuel the economic growth. Now, so when we talk about the economic growth aspect, increased domestic demand, when we have the largest demographic dividend, so that could significantly increase the domestic demand. Now increase in the domestic demand is actually the essence of capital formation, investment facilitation, attraction of the foreign direct investment. Now if you look at the Indian market, so it is one of the largest market and it has been attracting the foreign direct investments from many other countries. So increasing domestic demand will increase the GDP per capita and decreasing the dependency ratio. So this leads to the demand driven economic growth. For instance, in advanced economies, for example the Western economies, the demographic dividend has contributed to as much as 15% towards their growth in the past. So all those developed countries we see in West are actually developed to that stage because of better utilization of their demographic dividend. So if we utilize our demographic dividend in a better manners, then also India can achieve significant growth. And after that, boost to innovation and entrepreneurial spirit, and this is also another factor that we need to keep in mind. So large youth population can also a source of entrepreneurship and innovation, right? So they can be part of the entrepreneurship and innovation, as the young are less risk averse and more likely to break the ground. So example, India is the third largest startup ecosystem after USA and China, right? So now India's startup ecosystem has been gaining growing at a rapid pace. So therefore in this context, the boost to innovation and entrepreneurial spirit is possible through the demographic dividend. Now after that, we need to talk about the challenges which are associated with harnessing the benefits of the demographic dividend in India. So first and foremost challenge is lack of job creation. So the government is not able to create enough jobs. In fact, our growth is called as jobless growth, right? So the labor intensive sectors have not gaining or not developing in India. Industry's contribution is very low, right? In the GDP is very low. However, the service sector is not a labor intensive sector. There's a disguised unemployment which has been taking place in agriculture sector, where productivity is zero or productivity is very low. So therefore in this context, lack of jobs or lack of job creation is the first and foremost challenge. Now after that, we need to talk about lack of quality education and skilling of the populations. Now if you look at the education, so it lacks the focus on vocational education, it lacks the focus on skilling. So even if we focus on education, there's a mismatch between the industry requirements and what the educational institutions have been teaching. So such mismatches in skills making the students unemployable. So when they come out of their educational institutions, so they are not suitable or they are not employable, because there's a mismatch in the skills required by the industries and the skills which already students acquired. So therefore this is the main reason. However, the World Bank sponsored programs like Sankalp and Strive will make that Indian youth will develop vocational, the skills and vocational focus on vocational education. Now, after that, we need to talk about the poor health and nutrition also. Now, if you look at the anemia, total population affected by the anemia, so that is very high. So we also have the largest number of stunted and wasted children. So therefore, poor health and nutrition is also another major concern. So that has been significantly affecting the learning outcomes, the health, the working hours of our populations. So therefore the largest proportion of population suffers from the malnutrition, poor health, lack of access to basic health resources, reducing their ability to work, and they are unable to contribute to the economy. Right. So when a worker have the poor health, how can he contribute for the how can he go to the work? So when a child is suffering with anemia, malnutrition, so then his or her learning outcomes will significantly gets affected. So therefore, so they can be, they cannot be an asset for the country. So they cannot be counted as a demographic dividend. So that even led to the wasteful usage of the demographic dividend. So that could have serious implications. Now after that, we need to talk about the infrastructure constraints also in this regard. Right, we also have a lot of infrastructure constraints in providing education, better education, and better healthcare. Right, so a lack of infrastructure in rural and semi-urban areas. For example, when we talk about the infrastructure, what does it mean? Right, so infrastructure means there's a gender divide in access to internet, access to mobile phones. Right, so there's a digital divide, rural urban divide. So this is primarily because of lack of infrastructure in rural and urban areas. And in fact, the public health infrastructure is very poor. The government schools and infrastructure is very poor. So all these factors have been making the demographic dividend, the potential of a demographic dividend is further undermined. Right, so there's when we talk about the infrastructure, lack of infrastructure or transportation infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, and the communication systems, so they have been limiting the industries and hindering the job growth. Now after that, what measures that we can take to reap the benefits or reap the potential of India's demographic dividend? So when we talk about the measures that can be taken to reap the benefits, firstly we need to focus on health investment. Now health investment is very important. Now if you look at India's total health investment, it is around 1.5% of the GDP. So even though the national education policy has recommended that India should increase its spending on healthcare by around 3%. Health and education are two things that have to be focused when we are focusing on, or when we are emphasizing on the human capital development or demographic dividend. Now health spending has not kept pace with India's economic growth. Right, so adequate investment in healthcare actually provide a productive workforce. Right, so this is very important. When we have healthcare infrastructure, when we are spending more on healthcare, so that helps people being healthy. Right, so when they are healthy, so they can be part of the workforce and they can earn more money. That improves their living standards, and that can also contribute to the economic growth and economic development. After that, we need to talk about the education sector. Now education is actually considered as enabler in bridging the gender differences, or we have gender inequality in education. So women participation, in the employment. So these gender differentials can be bridged through the education, and gender inequality in education is actually a concern And in recent times there were no attempts, even though there were programs like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, so that actually focused on improving the child sex ratio. So therefore gender inequality in education is a major challenge. However, we can expect that the new education policy, which has some provisions with respect to the gender inclusiveness and gender equity, so that will help in achieving equity in education. Now after that, we need to focus on increasing the share of female workforce participation, and this is also very important thing. Now if you look at the rural areas and urban areas, the female workforce participation is very low. Even if you compare India with most of the South Asian countries, our female workforce participation is very, very low. So therefore in this context, we need to focus on improving the female workforce participation. For that, we need to focus on education, upskilling, reskilling, and skilling of existing populations. Now if you look at the Jammu and Kashmir, there were attempts to skill the women populations there, so that helps in increasing the female workforce participation. So apart from this, we can also use the role models, women role models, particularly the business leaders, so that will help in increasing the female workforce participation. Now if you look at data as of 2019, just 20.3% of women were working or looking for work, so down from 34.1% in 2003-2004. Now after that, we need to talk about fostering a favorable business environment. So this is also a very important. Now when we foster a favorable business environment, okay, we have the demographic dividend, but fostering a favorable business environment will help attract more and more investments and industries into our country. So therefore we can use our existing demographic dividend in a more better manner, right? So therefore in this context, it is very important. Now after that, we need to invest in latest technologies, more advanced technologies, for example the quantum technology, blockchain technology, internet of things. So those are the technologies which have to be emphasized, so that helps in appropriate use or leveraging the emerging technologies for our own advantage. Now we need to constitute a high level task force to assess our existing demographic dividend and ways to use the demographic dividend in a more appropriate manner for the benefit of our country. So therefore these are the measures that can help reap the potential of the demographic dividend in our country. Okay, so that's all about the demographic dividend. And after that, we need to talk about the central bank digital currency or the digital rupee. So recently the RBI has made attempts to introduce the central bank digital currency on the lines of a Bitcoin. So even though a Bitcoin is also a digital currency, but it is not backed by any central bank, but the central bank digital currency will be backed by the central bank of a country. So since there was a digitization or digital transactions have been taking place, and in order to reduce the cost of printing currency, the central bank has thought of introducing the central bank digital currency, right? So this is the reason for introducing central bank digital currency. And in this context, you need to understand what exactly is the central bank digital currency, right? So this CBDC is a digital form of a paper currency. So this is a paper currency, but actually a digital form of a paper currency, unlike cryptocurrencies that are operate in a regulatory vacuum. So cryptocurrencies which have the regulatory vacuum, so these legal tenders are issued and backed by the central bank. So our central bank is Reserve Bank of India, and therefore the CBDCs are issued and backed by the central banks. However, when we talk about the cryptocurrencies actually work in a regulatory vacuum. So the central bank digital currency is known as the fiat currency. Okay, so this is a fiat currency. Fiat currency means, so this is like a legal tender, and it can be exchanged or exchangeable one to one with the fiat currency. Now fiat currency means the fiscal currency or legal tender. So the central bank digital currency will also be exchanged with the fiat currency one to one. So though the central bank digital currency was directly inspired by the Bitcoin, right? So it was inspired by the Bitcoin. So it is different from the decentralized virtual currencies and crypto assets, which are not issued by the state or backed by the legal tender status. So cryptocurrencies or Bitcoins does not have any legal backing, right? So they're not considered as legal tender, they are not considered as a fiat currency. So okay, so even though they are backed by the cryptocurrencies, or even though they are backed by the blockchain technology. Now after that, we need to understand the benefits of central bank digital currency in this context. When you ask about the benefits of central bank digital currency, you can write these things. So first benefit, avoiding the risk of new forms of private money creation. So there will be no need to create a new money or new form of private money. Now that will significantly reduce the printing cost of money. Now after that, we need to talk about the resilient payment landscape. Since we have already adopted to the digital payments, so that will help in supporting a resilient payment landscape. Okay, so it will help in building block for better cross-border payments, right? So that reduces the money laundering, corruption, and creating fake currencies, everything. So these attempts can be prevented, right? So that will this currency will also be used in cross-border exchanges or cross-border payments. So after that, the consequences of this can be the consequences of declining cash in the economy can be addressed by the central bank digital currency, and we can meet the future payment needs through the digital economy. So since most of our economy, most of the people have already switched over to or adopted to the digital currency or digital payment ecosystem. Now after that, we need to focus on improving the availability or usability of the central bank money. So since if we introduce this as a pilot project over a period of time, we can adopt, or we can the people get to know about the usage of how to use the central bank digital currency. And after that, supporting competition, efficiency, and innovation in payments, right? So these are the benefits of central bank digital currency. And apart from that, in the way forward, there are certain challenges that have to be addressed. For example, privacy issues and cybersecurity related concerns, and operational and maintenance costs are some of the challenges. So however, we can introduce this as a pilot project in certain areas. So we need to assess its success, its drawbacks, shortcomings, and then we could take adequate measures for improving on central bank digital currencies.